right.
Welcome to Two Moms Save the World. My name is Kate. I'm an emotional alchemist and mystic. That's what I call myself. And my co-host is Uzma. Uzma, what do you call yourself?
I just call myself an empty nester coach.
Empty nester coach.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
kind of a transformational coach though, right?
Okay. An empty nester transformational coach, or an empty
Yeah, I like
nester
that.
coach that leads you into the new season of life.
Oh,
How's that?
I like it a whole lot. So how has your morning been so far?
My morning has been awesome. You know, as usual, I did my grounding, but the weather was so beautiful that I stood out there and there was a wind, and I just closed my eyes and I just felt the wind gushing across my face. And I just didn't want to leave. I just wanted to sit out there. You know, spring is in the air. It just feels so nice to be able to go stand outside and just connect with nature. So my morning has been really great. Have my coffee, have our special guest, and I want to know about your morning, Kate.
Oh, I got to tell you, I worked yesterday and I worked the day before till like last night I worked till 8:30. So I'm just like, that when you're just exhausted and you wake up and you've just got that fog and
Yeah.
you're like, I really just want to go back to bed for a while, but I've got stuff I need to do. So you kind of power through it. So that's where I am. So I'm definitely on extra coffee this morning, but I'm so excited to wake up on Tuesdays because I love podcasting.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of anything else crazy going on around here. Not really. It's pretty quiet and nothing out of the ordinary going on. We've got wind here and it's supposed to snow. We're supposed to get a lot of snow in the mountains. I'm so ready.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. We're supposed to get a ton of snow in the mountains right now. So
does that mean that everybody will go start skiing?
Well, that's an interesting thing because my husband skied yesterday and he came home kind of pissy about it because he's like, we were in Vail and they closed all the back bowls, so I'm not going back to Vail this season. All right, Mr. Privileged, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you kidding me? I was at work yesterday. So what happens is we get the spring snow, but people have moved on from skiing. Okay. Right. So they're like taking their kids to soccer practice and, they're just hiking, like they have moved on. So now's really a great time to ski because it's really the hardcore people that are still out there. And just your general Joe who just likes to ski is like moved on because he's like it in his mind. It's spring, not winter anymore. So we move on.
Awesome. Very interesting. So you want to tell us about our guest today?
Yes, I want to introduce Suzy Milne. Is that how you say your last name?
Yes, ma'am.
And she, I don't know, Uzma found her, but it's funny how you find people, right? And the reason that we wanted to bring Suzy on is because she just has an extraordinary story to tell. And I love hearing stories about people who aren't living your like regular like there is anything called regular, right? That,
right.
Like just taking the kids to soccer practice or, just like the normal bullshit everybody does every day. Suzy doesn't, not that she doesn't do the normal bullshit that everybody does, but she's got like this other life that she lives that when you hear it, you're going to be like, that's nuts. But like, I believe in these different like realities, and we're going to talk about the astral plane. And I think it's important for other people to hear this. I have a woman in my group who reached out to me because she said she was incredibly psychic as a child. And she had those abilities kind of like squashed in her because it wasn't normal. And she is trying to get them back now. So I like to hear from people that we all have psychic abilities. Some are more advanced than others, but I like to tell these stories so people realize, no, this is the normal part of life, right?
Exactly.
This is what we should be talking about instead of our suppressed abilities that society has told us we shouldn't have. So I want to welcome Suzy. Suzy, nice to have you this morning.
Oh, it's so great to be with you ladies this morning. My name is Suzy Milne, and believe it or not, it's actually a name that I chose And I legally changed my name. Suzy was a nickname that was given to me when I was a freshman in high school. It was after a song. And Milne is actually my favorite author from Winnie the Pooh.
Oh,
And
Oh,
I I have such an identity with Winnie the Pooh and my childhood, and so I grasp onto that. And then A is actually my middle initial. I don't have a middle name, and the reason I chose that is because I feel as if I carry a scarlet A with me. I'm a book nerd, so that explains
yeah.
that. But I feel like I walk with that scarlet A because I do set outside of those different norms. And I too, as a child, have experienced a lot of quashing of my gifts. The first experience that I recall having mediumship contact, I have a sister that passed away before I was born. And when I was 2, she would come see me.
Mhm.
But my mother, being my biggest hater, actually spent a lot of time trying to quash my energies. It was too much for her. And the contact with my sister was really overwhelming for her. And so I've always been able to read other people's energies and emotions, and I would get visions, but I would always push those aside. I have cycled through this process a couple of times in this lifetime. And hang on one second, my son.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta do
yeah,
that.
that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get.
I have something to say that's so weird. I'm gonna wait for her to come back.
My apologies. My roommate didn't realize I was recording.
Oh, no
Oh,
worries.
that's okay.
It's like,
Okay. And so I feel like that happens to a lot of people. You know, there are
Yeah.
people that are very uncomfortable who are really grounded in a Christian religion. And
Yes.
so they don't want to hear those extra things, but those come from God just as well.
right,
And
right.
so getting people to understand that, or even getting myself to understand that, like I'm not different. Those things came from God, just like everything else I have, you know, my beautiful eyes, or, you know, our skin, our height, all of those things. And so I really started to embrace that about 8 years ago. I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it changed my life.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wow. I didn't know that about you, but I just told Kate when you left that I had something. Last night, I had a dream that I was reading Winnie the Pooh books.
Oh,
Is that
that's
weird?
crazy.
Yes. Is that weird or what? She just said Winnie the Pooh, and I'm like, my dream just came back. I was sitting there reading Winnie the Pooh books. I don't know why.
That's
And
very
Winnie the
cool.
Pooh was
Yep.
holding Piglet's hand, and it was walking into the distance on a road. I don't know why.
My sister is Piglet in my visions.
Wow, check that out.
My
Seriously.
younger sister is Piglet.
So you, Uzma, had a vision of our guest and her sister in your dream last night.
I guess so, because we were
Yeah.
texting, you know, about Suzy and
Yeah.
sending her everything, and I guess
You know,
I don't know.
I think that probably happens more often than we realize, that we have
Agreed.
these connections and these visions and these dreams and things, but we just don't understand them and realize that it's happening.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Suzy, I have a question. Did you grow up in a religious household?
I grew up, I was raised Catholic. I actually went to Catholic.
That's exactly what Kate said. She said, we were talking about asking you the question about childhood, and she's like, I'm sure she grew up Catholic.
I'm like,
I
that
did.
woman was Catholic.
And
Yeah.
believe it or not, there is nothing that quashes a psychic gift more than a nun.
Yes, yes.
I just don't know what it is. I don't know why being in the nunnery makes you that hateful, but it does.
It does.
And I found that actually when I was young, my mother worked at a Catholic hospital as well. And so most of her friends were existentially Catholic, and we were surrounded by nuns there as well. And God bless Sister Anita, we lost her many, many years ago, but she was just a different kind of nun, and she really embraced me, and she used to make me these amazing little gifts, and she made me necklaces and, you know, beads, and I had them for most of my life, and I have them packed away now. Um, but she was such a light when I was younger, and really kept my light alive for quite a while. Even though I felt like my gifts were being quashed. And my parents were divorced when I was very early. So that really played hard on my ability to use my gifts.
That's interesting too. Like the age we are, to have your parents be divorced in the Catholic Church at that time was really a no-no too.
It was, and to be honest, to go to Catholic school and have divorced parents.
Oh yeah.
I was ostracized by many people. They would not let their children be my friend.
Isn't that
as
interesting?
if the horse is catching.
Yeah,
my fault.
Yeah, I know it's crazy growing up. I grew up in that world too, and I really attribute it to a lot of the obstacles I have to overcome as an adult.
Agreed. And you know what? There's no better shame monsters in the Catholic Church, I feel.
Yeah.
And so I really felt a lot of times like I was at odds with God because of that. And I think that kept me also from my gifts. I identify as a sorceress. And so the gifts that I have are directly attributed to God and my spirit guides and God are who guide me through my gifts. I get lots of requests for things like love spells or, love jars, and I call those things glam magic. And I don't say that lightly, but if you're doing personal magic like that, you're not in contact with your spirit guides.
Yeah.
Because I think your spirit guides are like, you know what? You should override that person's free will and make them come back to you.
Exactly.
I have a friend who said that no good relationship ever starts with a kidnapping.
It sounds like a t-shirt, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You might be onto something.
And so, doing those things, other practitioners get upset with me and call it gatekeeping. And I'm like, you can do whatever you want. And I would teach you the 4 basics of writing your own spell work, but I'm sure not going to lend my magic to this. And I'm going to stand 50 feet away because when the lightning hits you, I don't want the afterblast.
Absolutely. That's incredible.
And so I don't lend my magic to people who practice glam magic. Most of what I work with are people who are battling evil entities. And I use the term evil loosely because I like to say, negative energies is probably a better way to put it. There's lots of negative energies and we all carry negative and positive.
Right.
It depends on what we want to tap into. And so those people that have tapped into that more dark negative side of themselves, I help people battle that. I have been in a battle with a demon myself for a little over 4 years now. And it turns out that Suzy, in another lifetime, out of vengeance for what this man had done to her, did some blood magic, thinking that it would bring him back to love. It did not. It has viciously bound us together in several lifetimes. And I just learned how to undo it in this lifetime. And so I have spent the last 4+ years, since November of 2017, ridding myself of that entity that has dogged me in all my lifetimes. And in fact, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Tell me the in fact, and then I have a question.
In fact, this is the first lifetime that he hasn't killed me successfully. He did attempt in this lifetime and I outlived that. And so we're kind of in some new territory. And so my life has been crazy chaotic since that happened.
So when did you first come to the realization of this in this lifetime?
When I actually ran across this man in a locked facility that he was in, that I was working in, and God said, follow him, but not blindly. And I was like, well, that's crazy because he doesn't seem okay. And follow him, but not blindly was a really hard thing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
because that meant I had to open my own third eye and really be able to see who he was as a person. And so until that third eye opened, I literally had two scenarios of everything this man said, because I knew he was lying, but it was so hard to tell what he was lying about. He is a master manipulator. A sane person and a crazy person will love us the same. And that's what I tell everyone. And he is an insane person, but he loves you like he's sane, because he will do everything that you need to fulfill those needs for you, only so that he can then use you later.
So you trust him, right? So you're able to trust him.
And so I was always so cautious about everything he said had a dual meaning all of the time. And so I literally had to start living two separate lives, where he was an evil person and he wasn't an evil person, a negative energy. And there was a moment where I almost had him turned, and he almost came to the light, and somebody else pulled him back.
Good Lord. And I talk about being exhausted after working 2 days.
Yes.
We lost him, and it was so heartbreaking. It really was. And to be honest with you, he really does dog me. His negative energy and his lies he has spread. It has caused legal issues for me. But every day I get up, and in faith, I follow God, and I fight for I fight against the patriarchy that's devouring women like me.
So Suzy, you know who this person is and what
that.
he looks like?
We were in a relationship for a very long time.
Okay.
He was able to manipulate me into a physical situation at work that he was able to hold over me for a long time. I was actually, you may want to edit this out, I'm so sorry. I was actually raped in the bathroom at my job by him. And so he used that as a way to manipulate me for a very long time. And since I knew he was dangerous enough to do that, I actually ended my marriage, and I don't have a lot of contact with my family to keep as many people safe from him as possible.
So so why don't you just walk away from him?
I have walked away from him. He still dogs me. As soon as he was released, I could see which path he actually was in person.
Okay.
And out, because remember, locked up, he's a very different personality.
Sure.
He's able to be a very different person, but out in public, he went back to being himself, and it was very easy to see, and I saw it very quickly. The exit strategy for that was a much bigger thing to construct.
Sure.
And he does devour women. He has sexually assaulted over 500 women. He has a list of them. And
so let me ask you this: how do you get the demon? Like, how do you get him?
Unfortunately, he attached to me many lives ago.
Okay.
And we keep finding each other. So lots of people talk about soulmates or twin flames. He is my twin flame. I am as close to total light as you probably get in a lot of human beings. And he is as close to total dark as you get in a lot of human beings. And so he really is my twin flame. He is the evil part of who I would be if I didn't follow the light.
Yeah, so let's talk for the listeners that don't know, and it's hard just to scratch the surface of what a twin flame is, but it basically, from what I understand, it is, your soul has more than one part to it, right? So it's kind of like your split soul. So
it is. It's I like to describe it as when we talk about shadow work, but your shadow self in another person. And so I didn't always walk on the side of the light. There have been times where in past lives where my magic was much darker, or I used my gifts in a much darker way. I think a lot of that was time sensitive to the time period that I was living in. And so I've learned through many past lives that I battle way easier with light than I do dark. And showing that light really was the key. And giving up my ego. Giving up my ego was probably the hardest thing, and I still struggle with that on many days. But making sure that when I'm battling this evil entity, there's a legion of them across the world. You know, the young, starts with a G, Giselle, is that her name?
Tom Brady's wife?
No. The lady that was convicted of sex trafficking.
Oh, Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yes. Oh, I couldn't, all I kept
Yes.
seeing was the G and the H. But think about it. She was burned at the stake and none of those men suffered once.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm thinking about that. So she was burned at the stake and the men who burned her have not suffered.
Correct. Remember, she is not the orchestrator of that scenario.
Right.
There is a team of men who devoured her and then they hung her for it.
And they're doing
that
this
happen.
and they're doing it again.
Yes. And so it's actually happening across the world. I talk with a lot of women who are involved in the legal system or a justice situation with their attackers. Often we label them as narcissists, but it is a legion of negativity and demonology that is out there devouring women. And that's the next thing that we are here set to overcome.
That's what I was telling you guys about the psychic that came into my lane at Whole Foods. And she says the exact same thing. Yeah, yes. And I believe that. I get that totally. Well, you know, I have this fundamental problem with, you know, I don't see a lot of billionaire women out there, but I see a lot of billionaire men, right? And my husband and I have this kind of like contentiousness about this, right? Because he's an entrepreneur and he's like, oh, look what Jeff Bezos has done. That's amazing. Look at Elon Musk. That's amazing. And I'm like, that's not amazing. It's actually grotesque. I find evil is the fact that you have billions of dollars and you cannot fathom how much money that is, right? You can't.
Yeah.
You have billions of dollars, and the fact that you are not using your wealth and power to lessen the suffering on this world is evil.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's that simple to me.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because Stephen Colbert has had a very public conversation over and over about how he was arguing with God that he didn't deserve the amount of money that he had because other people don't have it. And he said the message he kept getting was do good with it. And so he's really had a personal struggle with that publicly. He's talked about it quite frequently.
Yeah.
But you know, money brings evil with most people because it sways them. And you're absolutely right. And the truth is that we know that Jeff Bezos did not make it there by himself.
Right.
That he had a very loyal wife who supported him. And the fact that we don't recognize her contribution to that is just allowing him to devour her as a person. She's a non-person, really.
Yeah, but she's coming up in the ranks, baby. She's got her own wealth and she is spending it not as liberally as I would like to see right now, but I know she will. Like, she's doing a good job. She's doing a really good job.
Yeah. And God bless time, because when you know that you've been here a couple of times, at least a couple of times, you realize that time is a non-factor. And so that achieving those things may not happen in
this lifetime.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so she's building a group of strength in women and money.
Yeah.
And Melinda Gates is actually doing the same thing.
She is. Yes.
And I actually think that is designed by her and her husband. I don't think that their marriage really fell apart. I do think that they needed to go separate ways, but I do not believe that their marriage fell apart. I think that this was her opportunity to branch out and let her do some things in her name so that women could be stronger. I don't see them having the animosity that I see in other people.
You're right. When I think of
Yeah.
their relationship, I don't feel that either, but I do know from what I've read that he was a bit of a sexual predator in Microsoft.
I believe that.
So
Devoured her too until she made a name for herself.
yes. So, oh my gosh, incredible. So now I want to talk a little bit about, you talked about meeting this demon in a bar
In a
on,
facility.
oh, it was a facility. I thought you said a bar.
No.
It was a vision. You had a vision of him in a bar. I think when we had a pre-thing, there was a bar, like there was a vision
There
or
was a
you
bar.
saw him.
Me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh
there was
no.
some kind of vision.
Oh, I've seen him, but yeah,
Okay.
I see him in lots of places. He connect up until recently, he was able to even break into my dreams
Oh,
or
wow.
call me
That's
to his
incredible.
dreams.
Yeah. So, you know, Suzy, for people who, you know, just to backlash a little bit, I want to know what exactly is a sorcerer and how did you give your name a sorcerer over a witch? Because I'm sure there are people who are listening who are
What's the
wondering
difference?
what is
Yeah.
the difference and what is a sorceress?
So a sorceress, the difference between a witch and a sorceress is the higher power. And so a sorceress serves the source. And so we, you know, many people call it different things, but I call it God. There's one above all. You know, we have lesser gods and we have lesser deities and we have angels and archangels and all of that. But I serve that source and I work with what we call the collective. So all of the light workers who are serving the source or serving God are all part of a collective. And so we have both people on the physical plane and on the metaphysical plane that are obviously working towards that same goal. And so witches tend to, the only way you can be a witch is to not serve the source. And
Okay.
so if you're not at that God level, if that's not your belief system, then you're a witch. And what I find most of the time is witches resort to the practice based on the fact that they've had negative life experiences. And so that has drawn them into the craft because of the love and light that they see. Not all of them end up practicing love and light, but they tend to do lower level gifting. And since they don't tap into their spirit guides, their gifts are often powerful is not the less powerful is not the right terminology, but it is less powerful because they don't tap into the gifts that God gives them.
Interesting. That's super interesting. I never thought about that. I never, yeah. I know, and that makes sense. Sorceress, right? Source. Yeah.
And you know, the thing about God that I like to tell everybody is let's forget everything that you know about religion. Forget the candles and the robes and the incense and every other tradition that you've ever seen in a religious-based, man-based religion church, because God is just love. The whole point of God is love. And so if you operate from a standpoint of love, then you believe in God. The problem is that it's really hard to love a lot of humans because they're not super lovable people.
They're not super lovable people.
And that's how I ended up with a demon, because regardless of the fact that he does horrible, evil things to people and brings so much pain and misery on other people, he still deserves that love. And it's really hard to explain to people that I have to give that demon just as much love as I'm going to give the archangel that comes and stands next to me. And people call me crazy for that. And I will tell you that there's a lot of hard days where I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to love you, but I have to give you love.
And that, I mean, to me, that makes sense. We are human beings and we're here to experience life as humans. So it's hard to take that human experience out of that, right? Which is what you're doing. You're taking your human experience out trying to love this person on, a more spiritual level. So Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. It also makes sense to me why it seems crazy.
Well, yeah,
It's-
I work with adult male sex offenders, which is not a very lovable population, and
yeah,
that's off-putting to a lot of people. But they're the most downtrodden group that come out of prison. So of course they're gonna. Why wouldn't I work with
yeah. Everybody needs love. Everybody, and and
Right.
that's and it's hard for me to separate. Growing up Catholic, I have so many just negative experiences with the word God. So that's my thing. But yeah, he loves everybody, not just a certain group of people, right?
Right,
And so,
absolutely.
and he asks us to do the same thing. So you are serving that mission.
And yeah, I can't do anything else but that. And it's really difficult to explain to people that I can't unsee the things that I've seen now. I can't go back and be like, oh, I'm going to be a professor and I'm going to, work part-time in this facility. I can't go back to that. I
Yeah,
can't live that life now because I can't unsee the things that I've seen. And so when I'm in those places, I can't be me.
right.
Okay.
I actually was working for a Catholic college. I was a professor there. And in all of this being dogged by this individual on the physical plane, they didn't stand behind me. It was an all women's Catholic college. The president is a nun, and they abandoned me like that.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So even though I felt such community there, as soon as it didn't serve their purpose, I was no longer a part of their community. And that was really devastating to me, just because I truly love to teach. And I don't toot my own horn very often, but I'm a pretty amazing professor and
Yeah.
my students love me. And I actually teach people who are getting their degrees to be a mental health professional. I teach them how to be a mental health professional, even though I'm a research psychologist. And giving that up and giving that title up was a huge pull against my ego.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So how do you get over something like that? How do you move forward?
Well, I recommend Arbor Mist and crying in the shower as your first step.
Arbor Mist, is that a wine cooler?
Arbor Mist is that cheap bottle of wine, but it's super thick, so if you drop it, it won't break.
Okay.
It gets slippery in the shower, ladies.
Yeah. So sit down.
Yeah.
I really had to examine why my ego was so tied to that title of being a professor, and giving that ego boost up. And so yeah, it was tough, and it was tough to walk away knowing that the value and camaraderie and community that I felt there wasn't shared when
Yeah.
it wasn't of their benefit. And I think we get that a lot in churches.
Yes.
In man-based religion, we get a lot of, they, less judge not lest ye be judged and all of that good stuff. You can tell me that all you want, but please practice it.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got embroiled. I love that word. It wasn't that big of a deal, but it kind of was when I was in Catholic school. And I love telling this story because it really gets to the crux of religion, which is a man-based thing and money talks, right? So
Yeah.
did you used to get those little envelopes that
Yes.
were sent to you like weekly that you would put your collection money in, you write your family name on it and how much and put it in the collection plate? Well, I probably had like, I don't know, 50 of those things between me and my sister stuffed in our backpacks. Like I don't know, my parents, they put money in or not put money in, but it never occurred to anybody that they were tallying up how much money you were putting in the collection plate until the head priest called my father at work and said, hey, you're not giving them enough money to our church. Meanwhile, my sister and I are paying tuition to be in their Catholic school.
Right.
And my father says to him, hey, you just called me at work to talk about something absolutely ridiculous, right? And if you want to press this issue with me, my children will not be in your school tomorrow. And it got dropped from there, or it didn't. And I just don't know the rest of the story, but that was, and my parents stopped going to church then.
It's funny that you say that. My stepsister and I are 6 months apart, so we were in the same grade. And our parents had stopped going to church, but they would still drive us there. And we weren't old enough to drive yet. We were 15.
Yeah.
And we used to take turns giving $1 every week. Because we're 15. We have babysitting jobs. We didn't even have regular jobs yet. And that the Sunday that they gave the lecture, that for those of you who are only giving $1, you're just not doing enough. And I said, then fuck you and your $1. I'll keep it.
Yeah.
Because God didn't ask for it.
That's right. You're using it to, yeah. I that's a rabbit hole I could go down.
And so, yes, that man-made religion, you know, that perverts God for so many people.
Yes.
And
Wow.
And it drives people away from that.
Yes.
And so that's where we get a lot of, you know, people who are identifying with more pagan religions, more Wicca or Wiccan. And I'm not dogging any of those things. Buddhists, any of that, you know, there's a lot of value in every religion that's out there because there's a lot of truth in the base of where it started. But how man has chosen to practice it and implement it is oppressive, if that's, you know.
Talk about the Crusades, right?
Right. You know, and any of us who have seen even a little bit of historical, how the church has utilized that oppression to manipulate people, particularly women. Yeah,
if you want to see something incredible, and when you were talking about your blood or what did you do?
Your blood magic, yeah.
Yeah, it immediately what popped into my mind was Catherine de Medici.
Yes.
It was the role of
So if anybody's interested in all of this, go watch the Medicis. Catherine's not in, I don't think she's in it, but watch the Medicis, and that's all tied to the Pope, right? This is like organized crime in Italy, and they picked the Pope. God never picked the Pope.
Is that like on Netflix or something?
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix. I'll send it to you. It's incredible.
Okay. I need to see that.
I think that if you really look at it, Catherine is a magic practitioner herself.
Yeah, she from what I heard about her black magic, she was really into black magic.
She was.
Maybe you were her.
Oh, I hope not.
You said you lean towards the darker magic.
I definitely did. And in a past life, and not even in all of them. And I feel that when I'm being shown those things, so the energy that I see there is really that I was using it to garner love.
Oh.
In much of what I do, I give out so much love and get very little back. And so my self-love, I think, was suffering. And I was so tied to the fact that I had to have a dude. I had to have a man. But those are hundreds of years ago. Remember that.
Yeah.
You know, a couple thousand years ago, if you didn't have a dude, if you didn't have a male, if you didn't have a man, a benefactor, whatever, you know, you had no value.
You couldn't own property. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't do any of those things. And so I kept seeking that because I was being shown that that is the only way to the success. And in this lifetime, I am grateful enough that we are at a point where that is not necessarily the case any longer. That I don't have to have a man's surname in order for me to be valued and not oppressed. I don't need that as protection.
So speaking of like men and love and all of that, you said you had to leave your husband because of everything that was going on. And how many kids do you have?
I actually have 10 children.
Okay.
I have.
And you had to leave all of them and your husband?
Well, I actually lied to my family and said that I was having an affair with this man because I was still so terrified to tell anyone that he had raped me.
Oh, wow.
It took me almost 4 years to tell anybody,
Wow.
Okay.
because I was hoping that he would gain common sense and go away and I would never have to tell.
Okay.
So one of my adult children knows about it. And that's really the limit of that. I think that right now it would be very hurtful for them to know the truth. And the only reason the one child knows it is because he's actually a forensic psychologist, and he works in a facility himself. And so I finally broke down and I'm like, this is what really happened and this is how I landed here, because he was so confused as to how I got manipulated into this. And I told him in a moment of naivete about my educational background and what I knew. I got caught in a situation where he could get me off camera, and he did it, and he took that opportunity. And don't get me wrong, yeah, we definitely had a relationship, but I portrayed that to my husband as something much more than it actually was.
Right.
And I knew that would be a deal breaker for my ex-husband, cheating.
Right.
Cheating. I didn't have any physical relationship with this man. I had a verbal relationship with this man, other than the bathroom incident, and I don't consider that consensual, obviously.
Yeah.
So cheating to him, yes, I was emotionally supporting this person, and there was no other option. He had already threatened to kill my children. He said that he could, ruin my life, ruin my career. And it turns out that he's done all of that, even though I didn't tell. And I think that it's just important that we understand that those entities that are out there that are devouring women, that's how they're doing it. It's that shame and vulnerability that they're playing on that is still in our society.
Yeah.
That shame of being able to tell, because everybody wants me to go to the police. The state patrol has been bothering me for 2 months now, asking me to come tell my story. No, absolutely not. Because it didn't matter whether I told or didn't tell, I still ended up in the same spot. And you've done nothing about him, and he's still out there free. So if he's going to be out there free, I am going to keep living my life. And
Okay, I'm sorry, I understand that, but what I'm not understanding is why didn't you tell your husband the truth? Because you've had 10 kids with him, you've had that long-standing relationship.
I've given birth to 5 children. They were not all biological kids. And then we adopted 4, and then he had a step son with a previous marriage. So those are my 10 children. So 5 of them, I have 2 biological children with my ex-husband. And he was just as evil in a very different way. And I had already had an interaction with him, ironically enough, where I had told him that if he didn't change, that I was asking for a divorce. And 4 days later, he was in a life-changing accident, and he doesn't remember that
conversation.
He doesn't, and it was actually in front of a counselor. So I have a witness that it happened, and even though he doesn't recall any of that, and he almost lost his life in that accident, and it changed him to be an even worse emotional abuser.
Wow.
And so I had 2 devils in my life, and I had to get rid of one because they were killing me.
Yeah.
And it was easier to manage the one that was locked up than the one that was in my face. And I know that sounds crazy to other people. But yeah, I had to save myself. And I knew that I had to save myself. I had told my ex-husband of the 2 other instances where this man had tried to get at me. And my ex-husband told me that, number 1, no one would believe me because I'm a liar. And which I'm not. And number 2, that it was something that I wanted, and I was just trying to get this man's attention because I was so desperate. And so I knew that I did not have his support. And with his level of narcissism, he will always play the victim and gather more support and victims. So it was easier to cut him off than it was the locked up criminal.
Yeah, it sounds like you definitely are better on your own right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually almost exactly 4 years since I ended my marriage. And again, still a battle because I have this crazy demon that dogs me, and lots of people have used that against me. 8 of my children are adults. So I have only 2 children that are still left at home. My 2 youngest children actually are very well versed in what goes on in my life now. They know that I'm a practitioner. They know the things that I do for protection. They know that it gets a little crazy sometimes, but they accept me for who I am. And so I have such high hopes that there's a day that I can walk free among people and not be judged like that. I understand that day isn't today, but I do have my coven. I do have a community of people online. I have a couple of people in person who are practitioners, and believe it or not, I have a couple of angels that walk the earth. One man that I am so grateful for is a soldier of God, and he found me, and he keeps me loved and protected right now. And he brings the words to me sometimes too. So we never know who's going to enter our lives.
We really don't. I know.
Yeah.
I think that's an incredible thing. And and also just like day to day, like just because your life is like a certain way today doesn't mean it's going to be like that tomorrow. Like miracles happen all the time.
Right.
So I know you work at this, you work with men who have been sex abusers. Do you work with, do you do energy work? What other work do you do what work do you do as a sorceress?
So obviously with his allegations against me, I no longer work in any facilities. I no longer provide support for anyone. I don't teach any in a college setting any longer. I opened my own page called the Healing Pool.
This is where I'm going. Yes. Awesome.
And so, you know, water, I'm really drawn to water. Water's so cleansing for me because I'm an earth sign. And so I think I'm
What
gonna
are
cry
you?
here. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. What sign are you?
I'm actually a Capricorn.
Girl.
Both of you?
Yeah,
Capricorns? Oh my gosh.
I'm a Capricorn. I'm a Capricorn sun. I'm a Leo moon, which is where all this crazy love stuff comes from. And I'm a Libra rising. So I've got quite the chart there sometimes. And so water speaks to me, and I opened up my page, the Healing Pool. I am still looking for a website builder because I bought the website domain name. But I teach shadow work for free to anybody who wants to know about it. And shadow work was actually coined by Carl Jung.
Yes.
It's an exploration and reconciliation of our dark, hidden shadow parts of our personality. And I got to tell you, I've walked through the shadow. I lived with the shadow. He still walks the earth. And I know who my shadow is, and really tapping into that and taking those gifts of the dark parts and turning them into light was so much hard work. I started with DBT in June of 2018. I have done 2 rounds of 6 months of DBT, which
What's
is
DBT?
DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy.
Okay.
It is designed to treat people who have a borderline personality disorder. But we know that borderline personality disorder actually comes from trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so anybody who's suffered trauma, DBT works great for adults who've suffered trauma. And I made it through that. And then I really started delving into the shadow work. But I will tell you that I did 20 to 30 hours of therapy a week.
Wow.
Self-therapy, self-practice, really digging down to who I am, what I was, why I've done the things I've done, what motivates me to do the things that I do now, and how do I change that. And so I know what it's like to walk through that shadow. I know what it's like to walk on that dark side. And I am surrounded by darkness all the time because of my light. And so I work so hard. I teach those classes for free. Most people haven't made it past the third one.
I totally want to dive in and take one of your classes because I'm a huge fan of Carl Jung.
Yes,
And,
you are.
Yeah, I love Carl Jung, Albert Einstein. I love those men. They're the good ones. And yeah, and Carl Jung, yeah, incredible, just incredible, his works.
And through encouragement, I actually just recently started offering readings on my page. I hadn't done that before. I used to read people for free all the time in groups and stuff. But someone really encouraged me to offer my readings. So I did just add that, but really my main focus is getting that shadow work out there. And I do it for free. I know lots of people that charge for it, that make lots of money out of it. But Carl Jung wouldn't have wanted that, number one. And number two, God doesn't want me to do that. Teaching people how to walk on their own path shouldn't be a charge. You want a reading, yeah, okay, I'll charge you for that.
Yeah.
But getting people to their path is really what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I got to take my love of teaching and turn it outward into a spiritual way that I had never been able to do. And I'll starve to death maybe doing it, but I also know that I feel so blessed and fulfilled. I actually had a reading this morning that I gave out for free, and that person contacted me and was so very amazingly grateful. Her brother was murdered, and the message that I gave to her from her brother, she called her mom immediately, and her mom's like, "You're never going to believe this, but she must have tapped into me because I showed her the same vision," the mother. And so now they're planning a memorial for him at his favorite place, and they know where to go visit him now. And she said that it was such a blessing to receive that because they have been in hurt for so long after that loss. He was murdered in their front yard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I thought, oh my gosh, she said she was so grateful and thankful, and it just filled my heart. And so I will walk in this light every day if I get to walk with a filled heart versus what I used to do.
Yeah. What an amazing conversation this has been.
Yes.
I
Oh
am
my
so
gosh,
grateful.
so amazing. You're so smart, Suzy. I just am like, I could just ask you questions and listen forever.
I know well, you know what? We're going to have a season 2. We'll have to bring Suzy back to
Exactly.
chat.
You're on our list for season 2, Suzy.
Oh, I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed to have done this. I don't get to spread my word very often. So
No, this is amazing. So yeah. So, and you charge for your readings, definitely do that. Like you've got to take care of yourself. This is
Exactly.
self-care, let me tell you.
You know, it's funny because I charge $10 for 15 minutes,
Oh,
which
cool.
seems so crazy low because, I pay somebody $25 for 15 minutes if I go see them. And still, I just don't have the word out there, and I don't have a big enough name.
Yeah.
But that's not the important thing to me. And it'll come.
It will.
Come. I have abundance that's coming to me, and I just have to wait and be patient. And in the meantime, I just keep spreading what I'm doing.
Shining your
Awesome.
light.
Thank you.
Yep. So in the chat, please send us your Facebook page so I can put it in the show notes for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And if there's any other information you'd like anyone else to know, and then when it's played on our podcast, it'll be in the show notes for people to contact you.
Oh, that's so amazing. Thank you so much. I will get that over to you in the chat.
So thank you so much for coming, Suzy.
It was such a great.
Suzy the Sorcerer.
I know, this is so fun. Like I said, a modern day Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Exactly. Awesome. So those of you who are watching, listening, share, subscribe, let everybody know, spread the word on Two Moms Save the World. Take care, Kate. Bye, Suzy.
You too. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you, ladies. Bless
You're
you.
welcome. Great talking to you.